While I'm enjoying Apple TV Plus' Foundation, there's a big problem with the source material that I hope the live-action adaptation can adequately address before it's over. Foundation Season 3 story will hopefully continue the creatively fast-paced approach to the generational war between Empire and Hari Seldon's Foundation, but as the time jumps keep coming, that's when my concerns start to grow. Foundation has already made many changes to Isaac Asimov's book series, but there's a huge obstacle waiting for Apple TV Plus in the coming pages of the author's novels. There's no denying that Apple TV Plus has thoroughly reworked the Foundation books to create the show. However, I think such a drastic overhaul was required not just to bring the space opera up to date, but also to make the immensely long story a little more accessible for a visual medium. That being said, the adaptation has had no shortage of source material to turn to when trying to tell the new version of the story. Worryingly, there's a huge part of the original saga that Apple TV Plus will need to create from scratch. The Foundation book series doesn't really have an ending. Isaac Asimov never got to follow through on his desire to end the Foundation novels. Of course, by definition, Isaac Asimov's Foundation book series does have an ending. However, the fact there is a last book doesn't mean the overall story has a satisfying ending. The author never penned an official conclusion to Foundation, so the saga is left unintentionally open-ended. When the time comes for Apple TV Plus to wrap up its adaptation, it can't leave the story as unresolved as the source material. I'd find that very frustrating, and I'm sure I wouldn't be the only one to hold that opinion. On the other hand, the story being concluded by someone else feels weird. 2002's It's Been a Good Life is a book that serves as a condensed version of Asimov's previous 3 autobiographies, but it also contains new material like letters and diary entries from the author. The book was edited by Janet Jepsen Asimov, the late writer's wife. She confirms in the book that Asimov did want to add to his Foundation series but ultimately did not. If he'd managed to write an ending, then Apple TV Plus would at least have a starting point. As it stands, it's up to the show's writers to essentially predict where Asimov's story would have concluded. Apple TV Plus' Foundation hasn't been covering the books in order. This creative choice could either help or hinder Foundation's eventual ending. The adaptation hasn't followed the same trajectory as Asimov's source material. Granted, this would have been difficult, as the Foundation books weren't released linearly. Although the Foundation trilogy was relatively traditional in its approach to the franchise's timeline, the final 4 books were a mix of prequels and sequels to the original 3. While Foundation Season 1 begins at the same point as the first book, Apple TV Plus has dipped into various other books as the story has progressed. This hasn't really been an issue so far, as the adaptation story isn't exactly the same as that of the source material. Apple TV Plus has taken many creative liberties that I feel have improved the overall project, so the decision not to adapt each book in the original order is vindicated in my eyes. This freedom the show has successfully gained by only loosely following the book's timeline makes me feel a little better about its eventual finale.